George.
How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Good, that's good.
Nice weather.
And today is August 16th. And here we are at the Centenary United Methodist Church at our oral history get-together. And this morning we're privileged to interview Harry Hayashida. So, Harry, I want to start with you when you were 12 years old. How about your schooling? Your schooling at 12 years old.
Oh, when I start from 12 years old, I came here to Japan, and without any language difficulty. My folks said, if you want to learn English well, you better go schoolboy. That time, everybody used to go to schoolboy, working for the family, American family, and they give you a boarding room, and then you go to school. So I started doing that right away because there was a church, Japanese church, Free Methodist Church in Berkeley. I used to go. At the same time, I was baptized at the church by old Dr. Johnson, and he advised me to, if you want to learn language, well, the best thing is to stay with a Hayashida family. So I went to the one with a family, and they liked me, and very much. And he said, well, Harry, I want to adopt you. Well, just the name, adopt you. Mm-hmm. And so I went to their family, and stayed there for 4 or 5 years. In the meantime, my folks in the family, my parents divorced. So they left me alone in Berkeley, and they went to, my mother went to Japan, and my father was alone here working, tried to make a living. So more or less I was an orphan in the Hayashida family, and stayed there until I graduated grammar school. It was half learning English and doing all the family work for the Hayashida family. And eventually, my brother was here before, and he was here in Los Angeles. So he invited me to come to Los Angeles because I was working with the Hayashida family here. He wanted me to go home to Los Angeles. So I came to Los Angeles in 1926, and here the same way I went to schoolboy and went to Poly High, and graduated 1932. And during that time, I was the one was working for the family was in Dr. Berkman. I guess maybe you may know Mr. William Charlotte. He was a film editor for Times magazine, Times newspaper. Mm-hmm. And the father was a Dr. Berkman. He was an eye specialist. And when I used to go to school, every time schoolboy, when he used to tell me, "Hey, Harry," he said, "you ought to be a doctor." Well, that's all right, but I got no money or anything like that. So I said, well, if I make money enough to go to college, well, I'll go. In the meantime, this doctor had a clinic right next door, and he said, all the Japanese haven't got a eyes fully open. So you see here, we got an operation every week in Japanese. And I had to take the breakfast to the Japanese patient because they have the operation Saturday and stay overnight. And I helped them taking the breakfast to Japanese.
We had a little interruption, so you'd like to continue what you were saying.
Well, my Ronnie was 2 years old, and he had a bronchitis. Bronchitis. And I thought, Dr. Rosie said, if we take him to Santa Anita, I think he will die. I know, because he was very weak. So I said, I have no choice but go out someplace by ourselves and make a living. And one of our friends, Mr. Yamaguchi, I used to know, he said, well, when I was a kid, he said, I used to live in Utah, so maybe I lead you away so you come with us. And he said, so, well, I took a chance with him, and I had an older brother and wife and one girl and a couple of friends. They all suggested that, well, we were all to go together. There were about 17 people, and I was the only citizen, and they're all Indian. Mm. So we went to Utah all together, and got the whole car and everything where we could put them on the car, and went to Utah, and we just took his word for it. And I think it took about 3 days, and it was a snow country. And when we got there, we got no place to live. And he took us to one of his friend's house, and that evening, somehow we live in the floor. Everybody light up on the floor. And funny thing, those people that was living in the Utah, Japanese people were maybe about 50 years behind our time, Los Angeles people, because they didn't have any, convenience of what we have. They have only out in waters, everything, have to pump it up with a hand. And even taking a bath, or they take on a round tub, boil up the water, and with a round tub, they take a bath in there. And so, anyway, for a few days, we tried to look around the place to live. And finally, we rent an old house. The farmer is almost like a shack. And we lived there for a few months. Then I contact sugar company because we haven't got any money and we haven't any work. So we got to do some kind of work, otherwise we can't make a living. So I contact the sugar company, and what is known this sugar company's head man. He said, well, Harry, he said, I find you a farmer who has a home, and you got a place to live, but you have a contract 100 acre of sugar beet, which I didn't know anything about it. So I said, well, if you don't contract 100 acre, you're going to be drafted because you're already in draft list. So I said, there's no choice of it because I have all these aliens and I'm the only one. So I said, okay. And we took a chance in raising sugar beet. And first year, well, I just barely made it because before the war, when I was living in Los Angeles, I saved up working in a hotel and just about ready to buy a home for about $3,000, you know. And that saving, I took to Utah, and everybody ate that up that year. But they eventually paid me back little by little, and we finally made it. And second year was everybody knew the territory, so they split up. And we went to, I went to Brigham City with my Rose's parent and my Ronnie. And we were making eye contact, one owner of the property out there in Brigham City. It was very close to the boulevard of main highway that lead to Utah, and Utah and Idaho. There's only one road. So we raised some cantaloupe and tomatoes and whatever we can, and watermelon. And for 1 year, we sold everything on the road. The second year, well, I got a little used to the territory, so we owned a little more property and raised some more tomato. And I hauled that tomato up to Idaho, because if you go to Salt Lake City, it's $1 cheaper than taking to Idaho. Mm-hmm. So I took twice a week. I loaded them up in the crate and took it to Idaho, and everything we didn't take it to Idaho and goes to sell us in the road. Everything. So everything, even no good tomatoes, they bought. Yeah. And it's a funny thing. Those people they can everything. Everything go by the bushel. No, no. Yeah. We just guess it. They push it. So, and during that time, 1 year, and second year was much better. So I want to stay for 1 more year, because I told Rosie, he said, let's stay 1 more year and I'm going to make a killing. But she said, I don't want any more. She said, I don't want any more money, she said. Well, because the house was terrible. In the winter time, outside's cold, inside warm. So the wall sweat. You could see the ripping coming, And so before and same time the road was so slick, in with ice. And during all that time, we were working all year, because during the summertime, Rosie and I on a farm. In winter time, where there's a military this jacket factory, where all the Japanese evacuate from a neighborhood, county or city, all come to work in the nighttime. Mm-hmm. In daytime, housing got to work. In evening, from 6 to 2 in the morning, all the Japanese making the flying jacket for, I think, 15 cents an hour, something like that. 35 cents an hour, like that. And so, fortunately, we were able to work for a whole year without any stop. I was working at the farm during the summertime. In the wintertime, working in a factory. So we had to work to continue the whole year without stop. In the meantime, where this my farm was right across the railroad, and they built a big Bushnell hospital for Army, and that used to come, those Army hospital patient used to come from South Pacific. And every evening they come into the back way, drive right into the Bushnell, right next to our farm, and every morning goes out, all the time. And among them are Japanese patients from Hawaii and all around that is amputees and one that, blind ones. And quite often those boys come over my ranch and he brings with one knife. And he said, and one knife and a cigarette. Because that time cigarette was very short. And they were getting a free cigarette, so they said, give me the cigarette and one knife. And they come to eat the watermelon. He said, I said, don't eat it here in the front. He said, go to eat the ranch. So every time they come with a knife and go eat the ranch watermelon. Then sometimes they say, Harry said, we want some sashimi. So I don't have sashimi today. He said, well, you wait till tomorrow. I go down to Ogden and buy some sashimi. So I bought next day I go down and buy Ogden and buy sashimi and go down and feed those Hawaii boys. They were hungry for the rice. Okay. So I did that for quite a while, just for, but all good Hawaiian boys. And after that, during Holy War, I had plenty of gasoline because I had a farm, and unlimited gas because I had to run a truck. Right. And a friend from Ogden used to come with empty tanks. You had to barely make it, and they don't have any no gas, and they have no meat, the ration. They couldn't get any meat. So they come with an empty tank and say, fill up the tank, because I had a plenty tank, just crank it up, all that 50-gallon barrel. So they come and same time they want some meat, But I had a contact with this butchers, these grocery store. I give them supply tomato and vegetable, and I could get all the meat I want because they barter, Right. So I had a need for those boys, and I have enough to get. So they come in often back and forth, and that was pretty good. But as soon as the war is over, I said, Rosie said, want to go to California. So, okay, he said, August 24th, war is over, so you could go to California. So I went, I had a plenty of gas so we could drive home to California, but that was still ration gasoline. So we took a train and came to Los Angeles and bought a house, the one we're living in now. And I put him in this school, and that was $6,000,
House.
But I put him in a school and went back to Utah and finished up the crop, and came right back home. Then real estate, his school's over, so he could come back home right away. So he took out. But I was fortunate. We were fortunate. We were able to buy a home on account of we had a voluntary evacuation, So we didn't have to worry about the $19 a month payment, the evacuation, the camp. So I had enough money to buy that home right away, and I didn't have the $6,000, but I had enough to put it in down payment to start with. So more or less, I was very fortunate because I had a home right away, and without any looking for work, because when I went back home to Los Angeles, I met the old friend that was used in the hotel. He used to work in the hotel. And I told him, so that I'm back home. So, well, he told the manager that Harry came back. He said, the next day, the boss telephoned, he said, Harry, so you come back to work tomorrow. I said, well, I haven't got any money. I mean, tool. And he said, don't worry, you got everything, so you come back. So, next day, well, as soon as I come home, I said, would you give me a 2 week, so that I could fix up house? No, you fix up a house in a weekend. So I had a house, and I started working from as soon as I come home next day. And so and ever since I stuck for, I said 50 years. And they sold them out. They sold the hotel. And that's the end of the story.
Well, it's hard life, but then you had a very interesting story.
Yeah, and after that, well, I worked there for 50 years, and boss said, well, we're going to sell the hotel now, so he said, you start from beginning to the end. You're the oldest employee, 50 years. He said, what do you want for your the bonus? I said, I need a new car for bonus. He said, you go get it. So he gave me a new car for bonus, Then after that, well, I guess a lot of people know about Mr. Gilson. He got a grocery up in Hollywood, where the high class. And he said, Harry said, he had an interest in a hotel, so he said, Harry said, you're fired now. Now he said, well, you haven't got any more. I know. But I said, I want to take a vacation because I want to collect unemployment because I never got a vacation in my life for 60 years. He said, well, I just got married, so I bought a 5-acre home, and I wanted to come in the landscape the whole thing. I said, I couldn't do that because the hotel's not finished yet. So, well, you do whatever you can and come over and fix it. So, as soon as the hotels were all cleared up, I went back to him, and I stayed there for another 13 years with him up in the Chatwood. So altogether, I worked 63 years gardening. I don't know anything. All I know is gardening. And I only had high school education, so I'm not educated. But I was so poor when I was young, I made up my mind. I don't want to be poor in my life. So I made up. So I think I'm all right making a living. And that's the one thing that when I was young, very difficult time is don't be poor. That's one thing. And with the help of God, I'm continuing to be in good health. And that's, thank you very much.
Well, one thing we don't have on this tape was that you were born in 1908, in December.
Yeah.
Well, Harry, the story that you told us is all work. And you went through much hardship, but you endured, you see. And you had that character of endurance and will, and we're very proud of you. And that's what paid off in your whole life, that you worked all these, over 60 years. And in some way, God has blessed you.
Yeah.
So, when did you get involved with our Centenary Church?
Well, I guess, when I lived, remember, I had a little connection with a church, and I told Ronnie and Rosie that Rosie was, of course, Buddhist from the beginning, but I said, and I was, in Japan when I was a little boy, I used to go to a Buddhist temple with grandma, and I didn't know. I didn't know when I was small. I thought the grandma was my mother because the connection was very little. So, and when I came, I told Rosie, it's in the Buddhist, in the philosophy is all right, but in Christian is love. Love thy neighbor. You love thy friend. Love give to the other. But in the Buddhist philosophy is your clean yourself and become nirvana. It's a little difficult for the children to understand. So I said, I like maybe my son to go to church, and it's easier for them to go back to church than to go to Buddhist church. I don't want to criticize Buddhists because they're nice. We should have religion. In either Buddhist or church teaching is all good. But I think it may be in the understanding is easy for him to understand church and Christianity is in the Buddhist side. I think I take Johnny to the Centenary Church. And then start going that, and you came and, took us, Ronnie, to the church for Sunday school. Yeah, and that's why I'm very grateful, George, because that's how we started. I started to go with him to church, and eventually Rosie became a Christian member through Yai Kawazoi and Joy and our good friend. Then, in the meantime, I started singing in the choirs and affiliate with the church, in which I'm very thankful. All around, very good friend.
And you've been pretty active with our church, and I think you're involved with the Methodist men.
Yeah, I guess began that time, there are quite a few members active in the church, and I think we will have a good time together, and that's how we started. I guess you started, and there were 1,000 people were get together for the meetings and for the socials and everything. And we try to be a good church members.
Harry, one comment that I hear is that you're 86 years old. And we were saying when we have the parking lots, gee, he's 86 years old, but look how he hustles. And he's always been a hustler.
That's his nature.
Yeah, that's his nature. See? So, H and Harry's, they have both start with the same letter. So, hustler, Harry.
But, every time I walk with Rosie, he said, you walk too fast. You walk too fast. He said, slow down. That's my nature. When I work in a hotel, well, that's the old hotel, they didn't have no sprinkler system. So I had to take all that, change the sprinkler every so often, And that's the whole block. And we worked, I had a 4 or 5 gardener, helping me. But yet, I have to look around and I have to do the hustling because, so naturally, I walk fast. And that can't get away from me. So still, even in old age, well, Rosie said, you walk too fast, you walk too fast. that's, I guess, that's the way it goes, I guess. But I'm grateful, thank you for the, we pray every day that we are good and healthy. That's the main thing,
And now Harry says we moved from Normandy to here.
Yeah.
What do you think about our Centenary Church being here? What do you think about us being here?
Well, from now on, we try to keep it up, and we have to try to get the younger people to encourage to come to church. And here is in the center of Japanese colony, and we have a beautiful church, and main thing is we have to keep it up, and we have to do more than 100%, so that we try to keep going for the neighbors, all around. And all that, even in the Buddhist church, and I still got a notice from a Buddhist church for donation and this and that. And because my mother-in-law was a devoted Buddhist, and I used to take her every Sunday after the service at the Centenary. In the afternoon, I used to take her there. So they think I'm still Buddhist. Still, I get the notice from the Buddhist church, and yet we must continue this. We cannot separate ourselves from the God. That's the one thing to keep everybody keep in mind.
Do you have any other interesting things you want to tell us? There's one thing that we have ignored, is that your picture-taking photography. You've done so much, and we know that you had showings of your own work. Well, tell us something about your photography.
When I was after I came during my school, when I was working for this Hayashida family in the Berkeley, and this lady, this was a school teacher, Mr. and Mrs. Nelson, and the one that adopted me when I was a little boy. They gave me a little Kodak camera, a box camera. I still got it. Mm-hmm. And he said, Harry said, I give you a camera so you go take a picture. And I went to the circus with the family, and I took the pictures, and I had it developed, and kind of fun. So ever since then, I learned that trade, and I got a book and read on the book, and I started to develop those pictures in the toilet. There's no room because it's a dark room. The toilet is the only place that's black. So I started to do that in the toilet and taking pictures. And after I came to Los Angeles, of course I was a little more independent, and I became interested in photography. So I went to what is known as the Los Angeles camera school, photography school. It's on Wimpole, Mr. Will Connell. I don't know if you know about that. One of Adams was the instructor too. Ansel Adams, and Doolittle, and from Mortenson, and quite a few well-known photographers. They were the instructors, and I started to take a little more interest in. I bought this what do you know, the graphics, and I still got it, and we started to take pictures, and in the Japanese camera club, they had a Japanese camera club, and we used to go to take pictures together. And that time, we used to get a model, and we had a little studio. We rent that above the Japanese town. Yeah. What's that?
Holy Brothers?
Yeah, Holy Brothers upstairs there. We had to rent a room, and we had a studio, in one room studio, and everybody make their arrangement. We get a model from Otis Institute, when there's a girls girls, everybody. We hired a model, and with a 2-3 fellow get together and we take pictures. And those were the some pictures that I had used, pictures like that. And we used to go out and every place and take pictures. So I have those few pictures, like old ones. And I learned that just by experimenting. And I never want to be a commercial photographer because the chemical you use, hypo, is acid. We use acid, and acid is I couldn't stand it. So I say I don't want to be a photographer. They say I just do it for fun. So just keep going. Not the only way. And I could have gone into the photography because I liked it, but I couldn't stand the chemical, smell of the chemical. So I didn't go into that. But since I was making good money in gardening, so, keep going. And no choice. So I stuck with it. And it's a hard work, but it paid good. And it gave me such things. So I think I have a kick.
Well, Harry, we certainly got a good picture of not only a photography, picture of the life,
just
we
fun.
certainly appreciated this interview. So this concludes our interview with Harry Hayashida. Thank you very much, Harry.
Thank you, George.